No cabe duda, de niño a mí me seguía el sol.
Isabelle Velasquez reads from a piece of art on her wall, a painting of a sun and the words from a poem.
Sol con sueño que sigue a los niños.
A poem that brings tears to her eyes as she reads.
Ansia, sombra, sino resolana.
You're emotional about that.
It's a beautiful poem. It's a very important poem.
She translates.
The sun was behind me like a small dog. Messy hair, sweet and clear and yellow. That sleepy sun that follows children.
And tries to explain what the words mean to her.
It's a poem about childhood and home and belonging. When I was a child, I knew no shadow, only sun. That was me. That was me. That sun travels with me wherever I go. That's the power of language.
Isabelle Velasquez brings the power of language to the classroom. I'm Mary Jane Bruce, and this is Faculty 101 from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Okay, you should switch partners now.
To be able to inspire young people.
Ace your finals.
It's really rewarding.
I love the students.
Welcome to Faculty 101, life hacks and success stories from Nebraska faculty. Time for orientation. Who is Isabelle Velasquez? She's an associate professor in the Department of Modern Languages.
I teach teachers who will be language teachers across the state.
And to Dr. Velasquez, language is like oxygen.
We don't miss it until we don't have it.
With more than 40 million speakers of Spanish in the United States, language education becomes even more important.
Because it's a resource. We often think about making good use of our resources. Especially here in Nebraska, we have a tradition of good stewardship, right? We don't think about wasting water. We don't think about wasting energy. We don't think about throwing money away. And yet the most expensive type of capital is human capital, is human potential.
So we should invest in it then?
Absolutely, like any type of resource, we need to take good care of it, and we need to invest in it, and we need to see it through. Yeah.
En serio, no exagero. Allá en Barron te matan.
Learning another language opens doors for students.
We have a labor force, and we're always struggling to keep a young and thriving labor force in the state, right? We need individuals who can work and understand the world, who can go to Latin America, to Asia, to Africa, to Europe, and interact. And I always invite parents and people in the community and people who ask me to look beyond our immediate context. Their children will not be competing with their neighbor. Their children will be competing with students around the world. And around the world, the experience is multilingualism.
Dr. Velasquez also teaches a heritage speakers class for students who grew up with Spanish spoken at home but need a stronger foundation in the language.
They want to develop literacy. They want to develop professional skills.
So in order to be able to write and do research and write a paper.
And present at a conference and apply for a job. And our goal is that wherever they go, whether they go into law or medicine or business, engineering, they take their bilingual skills and they add them to whatever it is that they can do.
Next up, lab work, a look at research conducted by Dr. Velasquez. The Latino population of Nebraska brings a variety of dialects from Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, and other countries. But how is Spanish transmitted and maintained in the home?
One of the reasons I came to Nebraska, it's because a question that's fascinating to me is why people choose to speak Spanish in communities where there are very few speakers of Spanish, and yet they maintain their Spanish, they maintain their family language, they maintain those bridges, those community connections through Spanish, even though they're bilingual. What's fascinating to me is what is the experience of someone speaking Spanish in Minatar, or Hershey, or Minden, or Schuyler.
Language transmission and maintenance in the home is affected by a number of factors, including opportunities for use. Through her research, Dr. Velasquez found mothers in two-parent families influenced efforts to make sure children learn Spanish.
So we were thinking and asking and looking at families and looking at household dynamics, and the mother seems to be fundamental. So we are starting to think about the ways in which minority language transmission and minority cultural transmission is a gendered endeavor.
Having a second language gives students a leg up in the job market. But Dr. Velasquez believes language transmission and maintenance has benefits beyond providing a competitive advantage. It goes to the very heart of what it means to be a family.
I would say the Yule crooner that great grandpa made. Remember there was that? That's like
we had one made for me.
That's the sound of my mom, my aunts, and my sister talking about holiday traditions from the Swedish side of our family.
And we'd fix Swedish pancakes with lingonberry. Then you could still get fresh lingonberries in Omaha.
Yes.
Now,
Many of our traditions revolved around food. But there was also a grace that Grandpa used to recite at many family gatherings.
The Swedish grace.
in Jesus' name, gebit de bord. And that was to the table.
To the table.
Yeah. But
All of those traditions are held together through the stories we tell each other through language.
Everything that makes us part of a community, a family, a wider community, and everything that makes us an individual is constructed through language. What makes us a collective is memory. And language is a vehicle for memory, right? Everything that makes us human is connected through language. Is it important to maintain a language? You're asking me if it's important to maintain human experience. Of course it is.
Dr. Velasquez has written a book that explores the importance of heritage language. It's called Language in Small Spaces: Household Perspectives in Minority Language and Loss.
Language in small spaces is messy, is the language of telling your kid, go take the trash out, is the language of fighting and loving and telling a joke and being silly and having inside jokes and sometimes saying it in Spanish, sometimes saying it in English. And it's the language of interactions that no one sees. It's the language of your common of your shared history. Is the language that you share with your siblings. Is the language that, do you remember when Grandma used to say blah, 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 blah?
what was it?
Anta, trinka, and pocus. I always thought that was pocus.
Nebraskans have a rich history when it comes to language, whether it be Czech or Russian or German. Dr. Velasquez feels a kinship with her adopted state's history.
One of my favorite novels is My Antonia by Willa Cather. Those characters are bilingual. And it's a fascinating novel, not only because it's a beautiful novel, but because I see in some of the experience of Latino newcomers to our state.
Ready for office hours? What path did Dr. Velasquez follow from her home in Mexico to Nebraska?
I grew up in Ensenada, Baja California, on the border between Mexico and the United States.
And her first career?
I always knew I wanted to be a journalist. My father was a teacher, and he also had a radio program. And newspapers were flown in from Mexico City. And one of the most exciting parts of my week was going with my dad to pick up the newspapers that had been brought from Mexico City because he used them for his radio program. And it was through those newspapers that I found out that they were female reporters, and I thought it was the coolest thing.
As a reporter, she covered a tragic time in a region of northern Mexico. Hundreds of women and girls were murdered in violence attributed in part to organized crime and the drug trade. She grew tired of reporting on a situation that didn't seem to change.
We would report, and the news item would be on the front page. And then nothing changed, nothing happened. And over and over and over and over.
It was time to go where she felt she could make a difference, the classroom. Dr. Velasquez earned her master's at New Mexico State University, but her plan to teach was delayed because...
You start asking questions and, oh, I wonder how this works, and I wonder how that works. And then you find out that there's a thing called the PhD where you get to ask the most fantastic questions.
A story called The Tale of the Unknown Island pushed her to take the risk.
A man wants to travel to an unknown island, and he goes to ask the king for a favor because he needs a boat. And then the king says, that's not an unknown island. That's a known island. And he says, every island is unknown until you're in it. That's why I studied a PhD. I just wanted to know.
Now it's time for a pop quiz, random questions, life hacks, and wisdom for all of us.
Do you have a habit that makes you happier, healthier, or more productive?
Drinking coffee. Absolutely, yes.
Do you have a life hack or piece of advice for students?
Take a risk. Take a risk. You may or may not fail, but take a risk.
Do you have children?
One son, yes.
Okay.
He speaks Spanish, English, Portuguese, and French.
Why did you want him to know more than one language?
I was about to ask you, do you want me to answer as a mom, as a researcher, or as a teacher?
Let's answer as a mom first.
Because I want my child, I want my son to be open to the world, to know that the world is his space. And I think that that's accomplished through language.
Do you have any recommendations for someone who's interested in learning another language or pursuing a career like yours?
Get close. A lot of people sadly think that languages other than English are out there someplace in some foreign land. We have soccer groups and we have church groups and we have a community that offers you opportunities. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
And finally, graduation day. Final thoughts on language and teaching and the University of Nebraska.
So you see many trinkets in my office. And
Dr. Velasquez has an office filled with pictures and gifts from former students. She's been here a while, so she's used to the Nebraska climate. Sort of.
So you did adjust to the snow.
Somewhat, yes.
And she loves her job.
I have the privilege of working with young people. I have the privilege of asking questions that are interesting to me. I have the privilege of working at a public university that serves the people of the state of Nebraska. I have the privilege of interacting with colleagues who are several times more talented and more creative than me, and I learn from them. And I tell my students, I teach for free. They pay me to grade.
That's it for this edition of Faculty 101. Thanks to Isabel Velasquez. In the show notes, you'll find a link to the beautiful poem she read at the top of the program, along with the translated version. Next time on the podcast,
J.K. Rowling's a pretty good scientist, actually. I'm very impressed by her.
A professor brings magic to the chemistry classroom. Faculty 101 is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
I tell my friends that I'm a Nebraxican. And when they ask me, what's a Nebraxican? I say it's a Mexican who eats carnitas at -7 degrees in Pioneers Park, Lincoln, Nebraska.